Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Malcolm here from Lilling Computers. Just going to have a chat video today. Talk about some of the new technology that's come out and or is coming out. Some of the things that are happening in the market. Some of the things that have been happening within Australia with used products and new products and all that sort of thing, and pricing. So let's get into it. Now, first of all, I guess it's a little bit old news now, but I'm going to start with the 3000 graphics cards. Now, worldwide, there's been an issue with the release of the 3000 graphics cards, not only the Founders cards, but all of the 3000 series cards so far. It started with the 3080. When it was released, 90% it seems that about 90% of the cards were bought by scalpers and or bots, and they've been trying to on-sell them for a profit. Now, one good thing that I thought that came out of that was that the people that actually wanted the cards built their own bots and planted them within the markets, within eBay and places like that. And drove the prices up so high that they basically weren't going to be sold, and they had no intention of paying it. So those scammers and bots got their own back within that. And although it probably borders on illegal, so was the fact that bots and scammers bought the cards in the first place. So that's one good thing that I suppose that came out of it at the start there. Even to a point, I saw there was a guy here in Australia, in New South Wales. He wanted a 3080, but was only able to purchase a 3090 due to the high cost of the 3090. There were a few more available. People weren't scalping them quite as much. And basically what he was advertising, I don't know whether he was expecting cash as well, but basically he was advertising that he wanted to swap the 3090 that he had for a 3080. And I can understand to a certain degree. I mean, the extra money, well, if the 3080 is what you wanted and the money doesn't really affect you that much, then hey, that's what you do. But really, for bang for buck, the 3090 isn't what you'd expect if you're paying that amount of money. The 3080 really is good value for money for what it is. The 3090 at nearly twice the price doesn't contain twice the value. It doesn't perform twice as much. It doesn't do exactly what you would expect something that is that price to do over and above the lower spec card. Even to the point where for video rendering, 3D rendering, production type stuff, the old Titan to a certain degree is still in some aspects better than the 3090. And if you're anybody out there who does video production and 3D rendering, all those sorts of things, and you have a Titan, don't rush out and buy a 3090 because you're going to be disappointed. It really doesn't hold up against the Titan for those rendering type projects. The only people really that I think would be buying the 3090 are those hardcore gamers who want the bleeding edge of performance and are willing to pay the price for it. It's financially not worth it, but if that's what you're into, if you are the type of person who needs the best of the best all the time for gaming, then the 3090 is the product. and you're going to pay for it. Now, I'm hoping that when the 3070 comes out and the new big Navi cards from AMD, when they come out, I'm hoping that there'll be a better supply of all the newer graphics cards. Prices can start to come down on the new market, and that will also link into prices coming down in the used market. I know that here in Australia there is a large problem with the price of most used graphics cards. A lot of people are expecting to sell their used graphics cards for pretty much the same price that they paid for them 2, 3, 4 years ago. And for people like myself and others who are trying to keep older technology in use, it is quite a problem. We're trying to create systems that will compete reasonably well with the newer stuff, but at a much lower price. And with graphics cards being so expensive in the used market, there is a problem. Now, it's even to the point where if you could get hold of a 3080, it would be cheaper to buy a 3080 at recommended retail than it is to buy, say, a 2070 or 2080 Ti or even a 1080 Ti. They're all excessively expensive cards. I myself, I use a Radeon R9 390X. It's quite a good graphics card. It does everything I want it to. It doesn't do 4K. It will do a lot of games at 1080 high settings, but some of the newer stuff, you've got to drop it down to medium settings. And honestly, for me, that's not a huge concern. It still does what I need it to do. I'm not an extreme gamer. I play games as a way of breaking the stress of running a business. And the games that I play, I don't need huge, expensive graphics cards to run. Okay, it'd be nice to be able to sit down and say to somebody, oh, I've got a computer system at home that's worth nearly $10,000. But I don't need it. I've got a system here. My system is an i5 9400F with the R9 in it. 16 gig of, I mean, it's probably the most expensive and overboard thing that I've got in the computer. 16 gig of 3600 megahertz RGB RAM. It's in a Cooler Master, it's in a Cooler thermal tape case. It's an RGB case with a glass side on it, and all up the whole system, including everything that's in it, cost me about $1,200. And to me, that's an excessive amount of money to spend on a computer. It was something that I built when I first started the business, thinking, oh, here we go, I'll build this and I'll be able to sell it for $2,000. And it didn't work out that way. So it's now my main computer. It's my computer that I look things up for the business and communicate with people for the business, that I do my little bit of gaming on, and that I also create these videos on. And it does the job admirably. For the price that I paid to build it, all new parts, it does quite well. So, and I mean, these days I see people trying to sell used gaming systems, with say a 3770 i7, third generation i7, or maybe even a fourth generation i7, and they'll have a 1060 in a graphics card, and they'll want over $1,000 for it. And those prices are ridiculous, because you can build your own system for those prices. It may not, the graphics card that you get may not be quite as good. For that matter, the newest i3 10100s are actually a better card than an i7 3770. They will do a lot more tasks a lot quicker than that old i7 3770 will. They're a quad-core card with hyper-threading. They have all the latest in design and architecture, and they will run rings around an old i7 processor. That's just the way technology is. And these people are out there trying to sell a computer that, if you wanted to build the equivalent of it today, like as in technical ability, to build the equivalent of it today would cost you under $1,000. They want anywhere up to $2,000 for these machines. And I just don't see the value in it. Personally, I think that what I am doing at the moment, which is I'm using a new case, a new power supply, a used processor and used motherboard, and then maybe some new RAM with a used graphics card. I can build a machine for somewhere around $500, $600, and I don't expect to make a huge amount of profit on it, because there just is no profit in the business at the moment. That's just the way it is. And if I could get my hand on 3080s at the price that they are supposed to be, then that would be something that I would definitely look at doing, because the price of graphics cards at the moment in the used market is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And I'm hoping that that changes when the newer graphics cards come out. So we've got Big Navi coming shortly. The largest of the Big Navi cards is supposed to be somewhere around the 3080 in specifications, and then they'll go down from there. I'm expecting the 3070 and maybe even a 3060 should be out in the new year, and hopefully when that happens, and the state of the world at the moment with coronavirus and all that sort of thing happening, when all of this starts to go back to normal, then prices will start to go back to normal, I hope. So anyway, the next thing that's going to be coming is Ryzen 3, Gen 3. And I believe it's going to be a huge step forward as far as processing capabilities are concerned. It's going to be able to have up to 8 chiplets using one lot of cache within the processor, which will help allocation of cache a lot amongst chiplets to be allocated properly, instead of each chiplet trying to steal cache as it's required off each other. It will create much better processing power at lower thread counts, due to the fact that each chiplet will have its own allocation, and it won't have to. It'll reduce latency within the processor and stop it from each chiplet having to wait for its own piece of cache, basically. And yeah, so we're going to be looking at up to 24 threads in a basic, not a basic, but in a Ryzen chip, without going to Threadripper. So that's going to be a huge step forward for, and once again, it's something that's good for people in 3D rendering and all those sorts of things. Most games these days, even now, don't use a huge number of cores and or threads. They only use up to usually about 4 cores, and having 12 cores, 24 threads on a processor in a gaming machine is generally a waste, especially considering that generally when you get up to those sorts of numbers of cores and threads, you're starting to reduce the actual power of each core. Where my 9400F runs at near 4 gig on turbo for each core, these 12 core 24 thread processors are only going to be somewhere around 3 per core, and therefore unless you're using programs and applications that can use that multi-core architecture, there is no use in having them. So AMD is actually heading more into a production direction with their processors, and that is one of the reasons I believe a lot of people are saying that Intel held back on their i-series processors, where Xeon had large number of cores and hyperthreading. Intel were only generally giving up to 4 cores with hyperthreading for a while there. And people say, oh, Intel deserted the home user, the gamer, the person that uses their computer at home. Where I don't see it that way. I see it that Intel kept the prices of their home chipsets down by supplying up to 4 cores, 8 threads for gamers and people who don't use their home computer for 3D rendering and all that sort of thing, to keep the prices down. And if you wanted a workstation that is built for rendering and huge multitasking, then you bought a Xeon machine, and it was a lot more expensive, but it had the technology to do what you wanted it to do. Intel were not holding back. You could buy those products. They didn't stop you from buying it. You could buy it. But they kept the mainstream as something that, in a way, I think they did a lot of people a favour, they stopped people from going out and buying processors with 8 cores and 16 threads to sit at home and play games on, with generally only 1.2 gigahertz per thread per core. That's not going to play a latest release game very well at all. They were doing the right thing, and people bash on Intel so much now. I mean, don't get me wrong, as I've said in the past, I like AMD, and I have liked AMD for a very long time. But just because AMD are on top at the moment doesn't mean people just have to bash on Intel. Intel have done a very good job. They've been very steady over time. AMD have come and gone, and then come again and gone again. They've made big mistakes in the past. Not to say Intel hasn't either. Intel have made mistakes in the past. But AMD, they seem to start making something that people want, and then they just keep ploughing on blindly and not seeing that things need to change, and they run themselves into the ground. They don't move with the times generally. If they find something that's making a profit for them, they seem to get blinkers on their eyes and can't see where technology is heading once they've got their mindset on that one thing. They just blindly bolt onto that and until it fails. But yeah, the Intel in the past I don't believe they withheld things from the general public, which is what some people are saying. You could get it if you wanted it. All they were doing was steering people that only wanted a computer at home for playing games and doing a little bit of light office work on. They were steering them in the direction of a product that was better for that. So anyway, what's been happening lately here within the business? I've got, as I've said in the last video, I've got three computers up for sale at the moment. I've recently gone through the 3 machines that I got off my mate, swapped in for the 32 gigs of RAM. One of them works fine. It's got a 4th gen i7 in it. I'm actually thinking of putting that processor into one of the gaming machines that I've built. It's actually got an i5 in it, and I'm thinking if I put the i7 in it, it'll be a better machine. There's another machine that won't turn on at all. It gets the LED on the motherboard to say that it has power, and actually when you plug the power cable into it, the CPU fan spins a couple of times and then it stops, and then you can't power the machine up. So there's something wrong with that machine. There's another one that's an i7-3770, and it powers up, and then it's almost like it's boot leaping, but it's not boot leaping. What it's doing is it's powering up and it's getting to a point, and then it just shuts off. I can get it far enough at certain times to get into the BIOS, and you can start looking through the BIOS and it'll just shut down. So it's not a boot loop. There's something happening there. I've even changed the power supply, thinking that maybe the power supply was surging, that it was building up power through a capacitor somewhere and shutting down due to surge. But yeah, it's doing it anyway with a different power supply in it. So there's something in the board on that one, the main board, that's not right. I'm not too worried about it. It's got as I said, it's got an i7 in it. It's got 16 gig of DDR3 RAM in it. The other i7's got 16 gig of DDR3 RAM in it. The i3, it's a 4th gen. So if I can find myself a nice little 4th gen board, I could build up a very cheap home system, all-rounder system type of thing that'd be okay for doing a bit of online gaming and office work and all that sort of thing. Nothing that's a huge rip-roaring machine, but something that'd be nice and cheap and that somebody could use quite easily, being a 4th gen i3. So yeah, I'm thinking I might put the i3 into the machine that's got the i7 in it, because they're both 4th gen. I'll put the i7 into the gaming machine that's got an i5 in it. I'll hold on to the i5. I'll put the i3 into the one that's got the i7 in it, and I'll just sell it for $100, $150 to get most of my money back. Because basically the computers cost me $160. That's what they cost me. So if I can get $100 out of one of the computers, then I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that I could make up other stuff with to get the other $60 back. It's no real problem. And yeah, I do have other computers around that I can strip and build stuff up in. So at the moment, that's what's happening in the world. Graphics cards are extremely expensive, new and used. People are scalping, people are botting, and it's a real problem. It's just something that myself and other people in the business, we've just got to tough it out for the time being, and hope that things will improve. And maybe we need to look in a slightly different direction. If you're in the area of building stuff out of all used product, then maybe we need to look at building hybrid machines, stuff that's new and used, because the used prices just are exorbitant. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say in the video today. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you like my videos, please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so that you get a notification when my next video comes up. Thank you for listening. I'm Malcolm from Willing Computers, and that's our video for today. Thank you. Bye.